Hello everybody, welcome back, Omega Giving here. So today we're going to be doing a Godot tutorial. This Godot tutorial is going to be covering something that I have not seen on YouTube yet, which is kind of interesting, which is basically dynamic couch co-op multiplayer controller management kind of stuff. I don't know, it's a long name. But basically, when a new controller connects, that our game should be able to connect that controller to a player, a brand new player, without having to worry about setting up all of its controls. Because the script that we're going to write today will handle all of those controls set up and manage it from there. Because we don't want to be able to program, or as developers, we don't want to program, oh, our players, we're going to have an 8-player game, we want to set up 8 different types of controllers, all in our game engine ahead of time. That's just a lot of brute force when we can just do it automatically. So through one script. So let's do that. So we're gonna go to our desktop view, and we're gonna create a new project. We're gonna call this couch co-op. I don't know, something. And then just create that folder. Already exists. Couch co-op multi. I don't know. We're gonna call it that. This is like my third take. I'm trying to get this in one go. This is gonna probably be a pretty long thing, but okay. Let's go into this. So basically, the things that we're gonna need for this to work is we're gonna need 2 scripts. One script under the player that would be created itself, and then one script that basically can be created overall that manages all of the actual controller setup. So when I say a script that's overall, it's basically going to be an auto-loaded script. So if you know anything about this, you can make it so there's a script that basically loads up as soon as you load the game. This can handle inputs, it can handle some other stuff. Basically anything. It's really helpful to have these things that just encompass chunks of your project that might cover some kind of mechanic that you want to implement. So we're gonna call this one multiplayer setup. So this is just gonna be for couch co-op, but we're gonna add multiplayer setup. Yeah, I'll just do it that. I don't know. You can do whatever name convention you want. It doesn't matter. So we have that set up. It creates a new script down here in the bottom left. If you didn't notice, we can open that script up, and we're going to delete this process function. We don't need that today, and just some other comments and stuff like that. And let's get into it. So what are we going to need? Well, one, we're going to need a couple of functions. We're going to need a add player function. So we're going to do a function add underscore player. You can do this. You can name this however you want, whatever name convention you want. We're going to just do a pass on that really quick. And we're going to need another function called function. Let's going to call this connection changed or gamepad connection gamepad, because technically this is going to be encompassing any kind of controller technically. So it's going to be a function gamepad connection changed. We're going to make that one pass for now. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to set up a little signal connection here in the ready function that whenever it picks up a signal of a controller connecting, it's going to call this gamepad connection change function, which will basically create that instance of that player and then add that which calls this function, which adds that player. I guess you could technically just do it all in this add player function, but we want to make it a little bit more dynamic code because this could get long. I have my project here, which has this all set up ahead of time, and you can see it gets pretty long. It's right now at 350 lines of code, but it's going to get more like the 700 lines of code if I add more controls to it, because I'm not setting up every single control in the controller, because I don't need that for my simple game. My games are pretty simple. So let's go into this a little bit deeper. So we're gonna need a connection signal. If you don't know what signals are, basically a signal in Godot basically is just like an open-ended kind of thing that's like, hey, I'm trying to catch something, and that something is very specific something. So the something that we're trying to catch is when a controller, the controller state changes, aka when you turn on your controller and it has maybe a previous connection to your computer, so it automatically sets up like my controllers are. These are automatically set up to my computer, so when I press the on button, they connect to my computer. When that connection activates, it will activate this function. So how do you do that? Well, let's go into that. So we're going to do right here, we're going to do a variable of, we're going to call this variable new connection. And that variable, we're going to put that equal to an int. That int is basically, if I remember correctly, this int is basically the device number. We could double check that later, and you can test this out on your own, because by the end of this, it'll work, hopefully, and not have issues. So with that, we're gonna do new connection. So that new connection equals, so we're just making that new connection an int, but basically that new connection is gonna equal input. So this is gonna be Godot's input function, like their already written input function, dot joy connection changed. And we're gonna do that dot connect. Am I doing something wrong here? Normally it's supposed to be popping up stuff here. And we're gonna do game connection changed, and we're gonna throw that into this. So if I save, oh, I have it in a tab, that's why. All right, so basically it's gonna take that new connection, it's gonna assign it a new input. So joy connection changed basically will pick up that signal of like, it's basically a signal of its own that's just like, oh, there's a new controller. That controller's number is 0 if it's the first controller, like that's assigning to your computer, or it's 1 for the second controller, or 2 for the third controller, so on and so forth. So it's gonna do that. It's gonna connect that controller to this function, basically calling this function and just doing it. So what that will do is we're going to go in here. So if connected, because this is gonna probably or actually no, we need to have some inputs here. So what do we want to pick up from that device? Basically, we want to pick up that device number. So we're gonna device connected, and that's gonna be a bool. So this will input a connected signal of true or a connected symbol of false, meaning it could also pick up a disconnect of a controller. So you might want to set that up for like a remove player function. We're not going to do that in this tutorial. We're mainly setting up the add player function. Mainly because I haven't done the remove player function in my game yet. Mainly because I'm not worried about that. That's end of life kind of stuff for my stuff. So we're going to do just add player function. So we're going to get the device number and the and whether it's being connected or disconnected. So if it is being connected, so we're going to say if it's connected, we are going to add a new we're gonna make the number of our players. So we're gonna make a variable here. So number of players is equal to input dot get connected joypads dot size. Let's just do that. So basically we could hard code this where it's just like it starts from 0 and goes up, but we want to just double check every single time how many controllers we have setting up, because you know that could encompass some weird stuff later on that we're probably not going to talk about today, but it's just going to make it so we just have a new thing. Let's instantiate this to be a global, because we might need to use this function in other places. So we're just going to make a global here of number of players. We're going to be doing a couple more globals here, so keep in mind that we will be referring to the top of this list. So we're gonna make, and really you could also have this number of players be 0 and just like increment them up when you need to, or basically on like setup of your game, you could just put that right there as well, just so you'd be like, hey, this controller is already connected actually, so just set up that player automatically. We don't even need to set up that player after the game is launched, just set it up during the launch of the game. So we could do that ahead of time, or just do it here, either or, doesn't matter. Just do whatever you think is good. So we basically have this. Let's do a couple of debugging statements here just so we can see things happen. So we're gonna print, do a print statement here. Oops, no, don't print orphan nodes. We're gonna do print, and let's do connected device, and let's just do connected device. I like to do formatting. If you don't like formatting, then get used to it, because it might actually help you out a lot in the long run. So we're gonna just do get connected device dot format. And we're gonna make that D is the device number. Also, let's make maybe let's also make connected device D, or actually also make this one, I don't know, like a connected or disconnected. So let's just make this one C. So connected device D. So basically it's gonna be like true device D, or connected, I guess. Oh, actually, you know what? We'll just do connected, because this is under the if function of connected, so it will be connected. So connected device D. What am I doing wrong here? Oh yeah, this needs to be in a parentheses thing here. What else am I doing wrong? Expected closing statement thing after. Oh, I see. For some reason, it always glitches out my parentheses and such, and doesn't automatically add them. There we go. So now that does whatever. So if we press play of our game, oh, we don't have a scene yet. Let's set up a very quick 2D scene that has our character body 2D, and let's just call this, actually here, actually I like to create a new scene from the actual pathing down here. We're just gonna call this one player, and let's just call this character body, Or actually, no, yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter. So we're gonna call that player. We're gonna run this. Sure, why not? So it basically sets it up, and we can see down the bottom left here, connected device 0, because my first device was connected. Now, if I press my second device, there we go, connected device 1. So now we have 2 devices connected. So now that signal will be able to pick up basically a new device and set them up to a player. Now we need to do more than that, because we need to actually add the players in stuff, because all it does is literally like, hey, let's increment the number of players up. What are we gonna do with we need to actually have the player. There's no actual player actually in here. So let's add player, which is gonna go and call our actual add function. Let's also just do a else statement here, else, and just pass. This is where you would probably set up. Here, I'm gonna put a note here. Or actually, yeah, pass. This is where you set up remove player. You can do a couple things with this on your own later on. It's pretty, once you learn how to set up the player, you'll probably be able to understand how to remove the player. So I'm gonna just leave that up to you, and maybe just do a tutorial later on for anybody that doesn't know how to do that themselves. But yeah, we're gonna go and do add player. So this add player function is gonna be our chunky one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna need a few things here. So we're going to, we want to instantiate our player. So we're gonna do var player. We're gonna do uppercase player because we're gonna need to set up the scene of the player and then actually instantiate that player as another variable. Or you can just do that in one line, either or. I like to put them on separate lines, but we're gonna do equals load. So we're gonna load in this player scene, and that will make it so it loads the player scene. It var, let's do our lowercase player, and we need to instantiate that player. So player dot instantiate. Wait, no, is it not gonna just do instantiate? I think that's how you do instantiate, right? So we're gonna instantiate that player. You might want to add that player to a certain group or tree. I'll leave that up to you. I've added my players into groups so I can be able to like organize them and be able to find them a little bit easier. But we're gonna, for the sake of the project, we're just gonna do get tree dot get player, I guess. Yeah, like get underscore, what is it, get, oh, I guess we don't need to do that. We're not going to do that today. We don't need to do that for a simple tutorial. But yeah, let's just do, oh yeah, we want to create a function, a global function that also keeps track of every single player that's been connected. So we're going to do players dot append. So we're going to add, this players is going to become an array that we're going to have all of our players on, and we're going to append that player node in there. So let's create a global of var players. It's going to be an array. And yeah, equals that. All right, it's going to be an empty array. So that makes it so we can add a player to our array. So then if we just want to print players, or we'll be able to have a couple of instances of players. So let's run this. And if we look at our list, it creates, it detects that connection. It adds that player node to our players list, and it adds the second player node to our players list because it found 2 controllers, because both my controllers are now hooked up. So yeah, it does that for us, but we need to have this player have like all the controls, because right now it still doesn't have controls. So let's start setting up some of those controls. So this is where you kind of have to figure out what kind of naming scheme you want for your player mapping and stuff like that. So I'm going to do something like some of the harder stuff for you, which is basically the joystick movement. The joystick movement is like some of the harder stuff to understand. The buttons are pretty easier, a lot easier, just because it's a little easier to understand that one. But we're going to do input maps. So we're going to make a variable here that's going to be called input maps.append, and we're going to append basically a input map for that player specifically. So this is going to be a very arbitrary thing based on a device number. So we want to do this in a form of, basically, we're going to make a kind of a dictionary here for all the different mappings of this controller that will exist. But we also need to create a array of input maps here. This is most of these globals are really just for reference. You could set them up in this function and just forget about it, but it's kind of nice to be able to reference this in other things later on. Sure, people are like, oh, globals are bad. Globals are not that bad in video games, or not too much, because you're gonna need them for a bunch of things. So we're gonna make this an array. And burn me in the comments down below if you disagree. But yeah, we're gonna have an input maps array that's gonna just basically take in a dictionary of input maps for every single controller. Technically, this array will also be assigned inside of the player, or I like to assign it inside of the player, so we could be able to keep track of it within the player itself for who knows what. You might do some selecting of objects later on, which that'll make it a little bit helpful for. But we're gonna do that for a global as well. So let's go back. We're gonna do our up, down, left, right movement based on our analog stick. So this is gonna be analog movement. It's gonna be awesome. We get to do analog movement. So let's do, I think UI up. Yeah, let's just do UI up, and then we're gonna do a device number right there. We're gonna do dot format, and then let's put in that format or that number, and that number is gonna be player index, or I put player index. It could just be device number, whatever you want to put right there. And this, because this is a dictionary, so we're just this is just formatting the name of this up function in the dictionary. We want this specifically to do vector 2 dot up. So that'll make it so when you move up, it will say, hey, that's a vector going in the up direction, or whenever we sense this input. I have this player index here. What is this index player? Well, guess what? That's actually going to be passed in. So we're gonna do player index, and we're gonna make that int. So that int is going to need to be passed in. So let's pass in that int, which we'll just pass in the device number. Just because it's a lot easier to assign all of these controllers by their device number, because it's just like a simple integer of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like going up or whatever. So I just like to assign it. So this will be UI up 0 for player 0 moving up, or UI up 1 for player 1, 2, whatever going up, whatever you want to have it there. So we're going to have that. And then we got to do this for every single control. Well, we're kind of setting them up later, but this is kind of just to help us map what the controls will be in the future. So I'm going to just copy and paste this like 4 times, because we're just going to do the one joystick today. So we're going to do up, left, right, and down. Sorry if it bothers people that I'm doing up, left, right, down rather than left, right, up, down, but that's how I like to do things. So we're gonna do left, we're gonna do right, we're gonna do and down. There we go. So we got up, left, right, down. That is a full set of, I guess, a one joystick on a controller. All right, now that we have that, let's do a little debug here too, just so we can print our input map, or our input map, and just put that here. Input maps. Yeah, booyah. All right, that'll just print our input maps. It'll just be a dictionary, or just thrown in right there. Okay, so now that we have our player input maps, let's actually give this player mapping to the player, so that, or like pass it into the player, so the player knows its own mapping, kind of. So let's do player dot UI input. So this is going to be something we create later within the player. So there's going to be a global function, or a global variable within the player, or like in the very top of the player. So we're going to just do UI input, and we're going to make that equal to input maps, and then make sure that that's the index of the player index. Oh, whoops. Put the index there, because this is input maps is an array of all the player mappings. But we want to make sure we get this player's input mapping, because this add function is just for the one player. So player 0, it's going to create the instance of player 0, create the up, down, left, right movement of player 0, and then it's going to need to assign that to player 0 in the input mapping, which player is player 0 in this case. All right, so that'll give that function, or that mapping to that player, so we can be able to use it. We now also want to make sure that player knows what player number it is, because we might need to use that for, say, controlling certain movement of other objects or something like that, because the object will need to know, hey, what player is pushing me? Oh, it's player 0, because that player knows what player it is. You can also kind of figure out things in other ways, but we're just going to put that here. It's always good to just have extra like functions to help you. Like with just figuring out what things are what for just debugging your game later on. Just like, hey, like maybe player X or like player 0 or 2 like entered some space. We need to know what player that number that was. And we can find out by this. So we're going to just do so these functions will be, or these two variables will be variables within player that we can assign to make sure they know what device number they are and what input maps they hold. All right. So let's actually start assigning these inputs, because this is where it's kind of hard. And this is actually where you, in a normal project, you would go to project settings, you go to input maps, and you'd input it. So right here, we're going to do input map, or actually, yeah, we're going to do input map dot add. Actually, we're going to have to add some stuff above this. But we're going to do dot input add action. And whoops, add action, right action. I like to kind of get to the point of stuff. So I'm getting to the point of literally just the add action. So this is literally adding the action of maybe a right action. That's at least what my first one is. We're just do up action actually first, because that's how I set up in this project apparently. So we're gonna do up action. We don't have up action here. So let's actually create that up action. So we're gonna need a var up action. Oh, whoops. I did not copy that up action. Up action. We're gonna make that a string, and we need also an event. So input maps are created by actions with events. And like doing a event will trigger like a name of an action. Basically, that's kind of what it is. It's like a name that assigns to something that's actually being done, which is the event. So action event. That's kind of like the whole phrasing of this kind of stuff. So var up action event. And we're gonna make that one equal to a input event joypad motion. So we're setting up a joystick, so it's gonna be input event joypad motion for us today. But if you're gonna set up buttons, it would be a button instead. But we're gonna just do motion this time around, because this is the more confusing one in my experience. So we're gonna do input pad motion event. So that way we have now a up action assigned here. But this is technically an open variable. It's not assigned to anything. We need to assign this up action event. So up action is going to equal, we're going to basically just do this whole up, this right here. I'm just going to copy and paste this, because this basically is what we need. So it's literally just this UI up, and format it to be the player number, stuff like that. And whoops. Let me see this. Add action not found in base. Okay, so I figured it out. I'm just gonna retype this, because for some reason it's not input event, or no, input map dot add action. Save. But weird sometimes. All right, so we have the input map add action up action. So we need to now make this a new input map motion. So up. We need to make this event be assigned to what the event should be. So we're gonna do up action event equals input event joypad motion, just like we did before this thing. And we're gonna do dot new. Basically, we're gonna say let's create a new event, and in that new event, so we're gonna do up action. Let's actually, yeah, up action. Event dot axis. So this is how you use axis for this. You don't actually have to use axis for buttons and stuff like that. Axis is just because it's analog. You want to make sure it knows that it's analog. So we're going to set the axis equal to this is where if you see this, it knows that axis will have a few different things. These are all universal kind of stuff. So we're going to do joy axis. We want to do the left controller stick. So we're going to do joy axis left Y. So this is for up and down. So Y is for up and down, X is for left and right. So we're gonna do up, down, left, right kind of stuff. So we do that one, and then we want up action event dot axis value, because it needs to know, oh, we know that that's an X and Y motion, but what is the actual values of that up action? Positive or positive. I believe it's actually vice versa, because you know how joysticks have inverted controls. So I think actually it's supposed to be negative, because when you pull it up, it, I guess, reverses negative. It's weird like that. So we're just gonna make this one equal to -1. You'll have to experiment with that if you want. I'm just gonna do -1.0, because a full movement will be 1, a no movement is 0. So it'll be from -1 to 1, or -1 to 1. I did it the wrong way. But yeah, you can also, for this input action event, you can also assign a device, like what device it is. So, and which is actually very important. So up action event dot device, because it needs to know, oh, we like, because like the Godot engine will understand, hey, there's an input here of like an axis going up, but we don't, and we know what device that is, but where do you want that device to go? So we can say this device is, which is the device of player index. It'll basically assign it, so it's like, hey, that action belongs to this actual input map. So it will sense a event and be like, hey, we need to know where that action event is actually, like, who is doing that. So it's the player index. So we can do that. And then finally, so this is not quite set it up yet. We need to actually take this input map up action, and we need to assign that event to it. So we're going to do input map dot action add event. And then we're going to do up action, because we need to assign it to up action. So it's going to be up action, and then we're going to assign it with up action event. And booyah, that assigns the entire up action of any controller based on its player index or its device number. That's what we're actually using, is the device number, to a input mapping system. This is basically doing what you would do manually here, but dynamically for 0 through arbitrary amount of players. So we got to do that for all 3. This is where it gets very lengthy. So we're going to do that for all 3 of, or 4. I mean, we did one of 4. So we have up action, we have down action, all that stuff. I don't feel like doing this over again. So what I'm going to do here, you can go and figure out how to do it on your own. It's basically just renaming the variables. That's all it is. I am going to just copy and paste from my other project right here really quick. So just go follow this past tutorial for this like last little teeny bit and just throw them in there. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to go up to here and boom. All right, I have it assigned in my project. I did not delete all of it. Whoops. There we are. And let's make this inline. You got to make sure they're in line with our if statements if we have if statements, or no if statements if we don't have if statements. And booyah. There we go. Identify right action not declared. Oh yeah, I forgot that I have to have my declaring functions. Oh, whoops. Yeah, I apparently didn't copy and paste this chunk right here. All right, I'm just going to put boom right there. All right. Booyah! All right, so that is how you do a full control stick scheme of just like a one joystick. Now that we have that, we need to actually do, let me look through my notes here. One last little thing of, actually, no, we don't have to do anything else. It actually just creates it, assigns it. Technically, since we're setting up all these right actions, the input map that we threw in here, we'll be able to tell that everything's set up in Godot, which is these, because we literally just copy and pasted this, or this down from up here. It will know that these actions belong to these input mappings. So let's go to our player now. We need to set up our player so we can actually like get our player to move around or something like that. So let's go to our player scene, which is like a 2D scene. I did at least. This player scene, we're gonna need a character body 2D. We're gonna attach a script to it. So attach a script of, I don't know, you can do character by 2D, you can do player. I'll just do player just to make it easier to understand that this player is, you know, a player. So apparently this, it kind of just sets up a arbitrary player function for you. Let's get rid of jump velocity. We're just gonna do a 2D overhead screen. So let's get rid of gravity. We don't need gravity for our whole stuff or whatever. So let's get rid of gravity. Yeah, let's get rid of the whole, let's get rid of all this. And actually, it's kind of an interesting thing here. So look at this. This has a get axis. This is like the default get axis left, right. So if we press play right now, it technically will think that we're back to our normal. Oh wait, actually here, let me set up a add child node rect thing. And let's just make this a color. So we just have a basic color character. So, oh, it doesn't do it? Huh, interesting. Maybe I broke some stuff. Maybe I broke some stuff. But basically in the default function, left, and it'll just take left and right and assign it to the character. The thing is, this is the hard-coded kind of stuff. We have a whole new system now for like the hard-coded stuff. So we're gonna get rid of all that hard-code stuff because we got to put our dynamic controls in. So if you remember from our previous script here, we have a couple things that we need to create within the player, which is these two functions. I'm just gonna copy and paste them over here really quick. So we have a player, so we're gonna do UI input. We can just do right here. UI input and a device number, and we're just going to set these equal to a default, but these are going to be overwritten as soon as, like, literally when the character is created. So we're just going to do UI input is equal to something like that, and that, like an empty thing, and that's going to be equal to that. So that, actually you could technically do the default assignments on it, but I don't know, you don't really need to. You can just have it as blank. So we got to make these variables. So let's turn these into a variable that's like a global variable within the I guess stuff. So we have device number and we have the UI input. There's a couple things you might want to just take note of. I'm not going to cover it in this thing here because this is already a freaking hour-long tutorial on how to do this. But there, you can put in dead zone, and you can assign dead zone per player if you really want to. So you have to figure out how to do the settings on that. It took me forever to figure out how to do that in settings. Just because settings per player is kind of hard for dynamicness, but it is possible. It is possible. You just got to make sure you have all those variables within each player themselves, and it stores them in that player. Now, putting in a save file, that's a whole different story because, you know, controllers do not set up evenly every single time. But we're going to just leave it at that. So we have our device number, we have our input map. Okay, with that, let's do some physics, because technically this character on its own has the inputs, but it does not know how to process those inputs. So that's where we need to go into physics and actually do some like physics stuff to this. So we're going to set up some velocity kind of stuff. So velocity dot y. Actually, let's just do dot x. So velocity dot x is going to equal, do we want to start there? Yeah, velocity dot x is equal to, let's do move toward, or no, input. So let's do input dot get joy axis. And then if you remember, if we want to get our joy axis, how do we know that? Well, we know that from our device number. So we're going to throw in our device number. So we're gonna get our joy axis device number and just get 0, and we're gonna just do times speed. So that makes it so whenever we move, it will move towards that x joy axis motion. Let me just double check. I think that's literally all you need, and that'll move in the x direction. If you want to move in the y direction, we gotta do the y direction, I guess. So velocity dot y equals input dot get joy axis. Oh, I guess you might need to do a whole if else statement for motion of xy, because this will technically add any joy axis motion will be either on the x field. So you'll have to double check and make sure that get joy axis motion is on the y field, and set it up so it's velocity y rather than x if you see that the joy axis is like on the y axis, not the x axis. So I think if we have this set up properly, my controller is not connected, so let me connect my controller. Oh, we have a broken thing with value of dictionary. Set index UI input with value of type on base node 2D with value. Okay, we have a little issue here. Let me just do this really quick. I'm just gonna copy this over, go to player, and let's just put that here. That might, here, because we don't know exactly what device we are. We're just gonna set this to default in case we, like, you know, maybe there's something wrong with your controller or whatever. You want it to at least move based on basic motion. So you might want this to just be on basic motion, just like that. Oh, do we not have this saving to an actual something or whatever? Oh, this script is not attached to our player. Attach script, or Drag and drop that on our player. Now it has a script attached to it. Oh, it's still having a problem with it. Input maps, input maps.ui input. It grabs player index. Why are you throwing error? Okay, I figured out what my error was before. So make sure if you're following me along with this thing, you gotta set this player object to be not a node 2D. So what you can do here is change the type to a character body 2D. Get rid of your under character body 2D that we created. Then you can assign your player thing to this. So basically your player needs to be on its own player basically. And I think that should make it work, which it does. All right, so now when we move our character, it's gonna move left to right. We don't have up and down movement set up. I guess I could probably show you guys do up and down movement. You can set up, I guess, like you can do this for side scroller of a game right now. You can make a side scrolling game, but we want to set it up so maybe our character moves up and down. So let's do that on the fly. So let's go if, actually wait, can I want to run that really quick. I just want to double check. Is up and down? Yeah, up and down goes up in the whatever direction. So yeah, we want to do velocity dot y is equal to input dot joy axis where let's do device number, passing that device number, and we're gonna do 1 for the joy axis of I think joy axis 1 will be the y direction, and then we're just gonna times that by speed, the speed of the player. You can change that speed. It's an arbitrary speed. There we go. Look at that. We have a character moving around based on 1. Now, what if we get a second player? Is it going to magically work for us? It does not magically work for us. And I think I know why. Let's go and figure out why. So why I think it doesn't work for us. Actually, wait. If I press play again, will it work for us? It does not work for us. I think it's because we don't actually have that character instantiating anywhere. Mainly because we're actually playing in the player scene itself. So let's create a world, like a world scene. So let's do world. I just did all caps world. And what that will do is we're going to add this player scene to the world upon creation. So where do we do that? We can do that in multiplayer setup. We could basically just do right here. It has new function. It will add player. We want to instantiate this player under a world scene. So let's see. In a normal game, you oftentimes will have this run in the background in a way. So right now, if we play the world scene, if we make the world scene our main scene to open right now, I think it has player as our main scene. You can change where your game starts by going to project settings, and you just be like, hey, we want this game to start running not in the player scene, but in the world scene. So now if it plays, it's going to be nothing. No players are in it. It's just going to be a blank scene, blank canvas that we can work on. We're going to add a script in our world scene, and this world scene will just have a quick on process function. And that process is we're basically going to grab input or a if function, if input dot, oh wait, no, actually no, yeah, let's just do on ready. Yeah, let's just do on ready. So all right, here, let me pass this really quick so that doesn't break. So basically the ready scene is gonna just grab for player index in range of what we can do is we can go and grab that multiplayer setup or whatever, like the name of this. Here, actually, I think I can just drag and drop it. Actually, can I just drag and drop? Oop. Why is it not working? Yeah. Multiplayer. What's the name of this function? Setup. Actually, let me check what the name is in project settings. So name in project settings is multiplayer setup. I like to keep these the same name because I think it causes errors if it's not the same name as the script itself. So in range of that, we're going to call the multiplayer setup dot add or add underscore player, and we're gonna do player index. So that will add, basically go through the dynamicness of it and just instantiate that player into the world for each player in the scene. It says invalid range. Oh, yeah, because I gotta make sure I grab the number of players. For the number of players that are set up, it'll go and do that. So upon ready of our game, it should instantiate 2 players. It's not doing it. Great. Gotta love it when I do a tutorial and it doesn't do it right off the bat. That is what makes my tutorials freakishly long. Okay, so we do ready. So multiplayer, add player. We add the player number. We do it for a number of players. I'm pretty sure it's setting up our players twice. What I could do, I want to do this the easy way for you guys, not like the hard way stuff. I also like to show people that you can struggle a little bit to get stuff. Yeah, I think I know what's going on. I'm instantiating them twice here. If you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's because in here in the add player function, when I instantiate, I need to instantiate and then put that under the tree, which in the very beginning of the tutorial, we kind of were about to do that. So let's do get tree. So this is where you might need to use groups. So you add these players underneath a level or something like that. So get first node in group, and we're gonna do world. We want to, because maybe that's like the very first thing. And we're gonna do add child, and let's just do player. All right, now let's run. Uh-oh, no file. Maybe it's not capital. Cannot call method add child on a null value. Oh, get first node in group. I don't think I have. Oh, I don't have the world in a group, that's why. I can just do get first. Get. Yeah, let's just set up, let's just do this easy way. Get first node in group. What we're gonna do is we're gonna grab node, and we're gonna set it up in a group here on the right. You can do that by just doing world and just add. So it'll be a group of world. Booyah. And we have 2 players. Booyah, that move around. For any of it, if you guys need further explanation of what I just did, basically what I was doing is I was grabbing, I put world into a group. Groups are really good to manage. There's like a bunch of objects or something like that, like, or what kind of objects they are. I've just created a group of world. That way I can just add things into that group, like for whatever's adding to that world or whatever. And the world itself is in the world, of course. So you gotta, and then we add the players underneath that world. So if we printed world group, it would probably show world, player 1, player 2. That's kind of what it would show. So basically with that, we have 2 players, which is pretty awesome. They are dynamically set up. Actually, here for just for giggles and whatnot, I'm going to turn off my controllers. Rerun the game. I don't have a remove player function set up, so turning off the controllers won't do much. Let me stop this. It takes like 20 seconds for these things to run. I'm going to play it. Nothing's here. I'm going to start one controller up. It will instantiate. It throws it into the world. That's awesome. Let's do player 2. It instantiates, and there's a second player in the world. And they're kind of drifting slightly just because dead zone. So that's something you'll have to figure out on your own. But yeah, this tutorial's already gone way too long, but I know that this is something I hated, and I knew that there's no tutorials out there, so I did it. So you can use this tutorial as your big helper guide, and I will have links for the source that I kind of inspired all this code off of. I copied a lot of his code, but I also enhanced it to be GODOT 4. And hopefully this will help you in your multiplayer games. Thank you all. Bye-bye.